Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today we have a returning guest, but of course I'm going to give the usual introduction as I always do. But we have Terry Virts here today. Welcome, Terry.
Good to be back.
Thank you for coming on again, man. So Terry is a former NASA astronaut, Air Force F-16 pilot, and test pilot who spent over 7 months in space. Was also commander of the International Space Station as well, which we've spoken about before. Terry's also an executive coach, keynote speaker, and author. And he's currently focused on his run for Congress in the States right now. So turning away from space, being more feet on the ground now, and trying to make a change in America right now, I would say. Terry also has most recently I met Terry in person. There was a photo exhibition that he did in Austria. I'm based in Austria. And Terry took some amazing photos from the International Space Station back when he was a commander there. And I think, I don't know how many thousand photos he took, but he had an amazing photo exhibition that took place in Graz back in March of this year. So myself and the family went down and met Terry in person. And all round cool guy, all round great guy to have on again. Terry, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Andy. And yeah, that exhibit is amazing. There's a guy who put it together in Austria, and he's actually moving it to Nuremberg, Germany right now. So that was I thought he did an amazing job. You saw it firsthand. I think you and your wife were there. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, look, it was so good that we convinced the in-laws to go down. They went down and spent a day down there as well. They loved it, so it was really cool. It was really cool. Congratulations on it. It was really great.
There was some poor guy here in Houston whose job was to count pictures, and they told me that I took the most ever photos. They told me I took 319,000 images. I'm
390.
kind of a photo
Jesus,
nerd. Yeah.
Jesus Christ! I'd like to see where they were all stored, Terry. Holy moly, that's
Yeah,
quite
I've got terabytes of hard drives storing all these pictures. So
crazy, man. Crazy. Well, hey, look, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the minute. So you're not up in space anymore. As I mentioned, you're down on the ground, and tell us a little bit
I'm
about what you're
down
doing.
to earth. Yeah, I'm trying to bring politics down to earth. There's a saying, it's actually a Bible verse: to those who much has been given, much will be expected. And I feel like I've been given a lot. My country, I was able to fly F-16s all around the world, including in Germany. Was a test pilot, and I got to be a NASA astronaut. I spent over 7 months in space, as you said. So I've been given a lot. I have a pretty unique perspective, working with people from around the world, literally. And what I see happening in America today, and really in the world, but I'm American, is just a disaster. I hate seeing what I'm seeing. And so I decided to run for office. If it was 2012, if it was like Mitt Romney against Obama, I would just live my best life. I'd work on photo exhibits in Germany, and I do other things. But I just see things going not well. I was just in Washington, D.C. for some meetings. There's National Guard troops on the street. A lot of American cities have Army troops on the streets of American cities. And here in Texas, just yesterday, ICE is running around dressed up like Navy SEALs, knocking down doors. They just went into the Hispanic family. The in-laws and the kids were all crying, huddled up. So this is not America. This is not the America that I know. This is not the America that I served for over 30 years in the Air Force. So I decided I got to do something about it. I can't just sit around and yell at my Twitter. So I decided to run for office.
Now, you made this decision a little while back when we met back in March, right? This is pre you officially announcing that you were moving in this direction, but you did whisper it in my ear, right, back then. But is it has there been many unknowns for you? Because I guess there has been. It's been completely new for you, right?
Absolutely.
How
Yeah.
hard has the learning been since you decided to go with this?
That's a great question. I got to be honest, I've gotten a master's degree in politics in the last 6 months. So um, I've learned a lot. I've learned that our political system is terrible, that I wouldn't recommend running for office. So only my worst enemies, but that's not true. It's actually been fun. It's been a blast. I love talking to people. I love people. I love getting out. I've been driving around the entire state of Texas, talking to people all over. That's the part of it that you really love. Unfortunately, in America, you need money. Of course, Texas is a huge state, so that, like, the Senate race is going to be $100 million race, if not more. So, and I don't have that much money. I was in the Air Force for 30 years, so that's not the kind of what you should do, here's my advice to people who want to run for office. Do something cool in life, then go make some money, and then run for office. I skipped that middle step. I skipped the make monies, so that's been a part of it. But I originally announced for the US Senate race, which is a big deal. I mean, a senator from Texas is a big deal. And I decided to switch to a House race. There's a lot of folks in the Senate race. They don't need me there. But there's this thing called gerrymandering where politicians just draw crazy districts to try and get as many seats as they can. It's basically politicians picking their voters as opposed to voters picking their politicians. And so basically it's like, even if our policies suck and you don't like us, we're still going to get our number of representatives. So I'm going to run in one of these gerrymandered districts. So I made that decision just recently, but that's my year. That's my 2025, 2026.
That sounds interesting, man. So it sounds as though you're enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of learnings, I would imagine. Like a ton of learnings, probably stuff that you didn't even foresee. But I remember you even saying to me, you were like, okay, I need to go raise $100 million. I was like, what? So if there's anything that's showing like a broken system, is the fact that you need to have $100 million to represent the people. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it seems like
Well,
wild.
there's 100 senators. Each one of them has to raise their own amount of money. And there's 435 congressmen or representatives. Each one of those has to raise. Now, a House race is probably a few $1,000,000. It's not going to require hundreds of millions. But in Texas is a big state. Not all states require 100 million, but it's a lot of money. And yes, but if you need to have some kind of staff to help you run the campaign. Unfortunately, staff wants to get paid. I mean, you're a businessman. You understand that. If you're going to hire somebody, you got to pay them. And then if you want to run ads, if you don't run ads, nobody knows who you are. So, there's TV ads, they're expensive. There's radio ads. The real way to do ads now is on TikTok and on Facebook. There's little ads that you click skip after 5 seconds. So you have to do something to go, hey, I'm Terry Virts. I'm running for office. And all that stuff costs money. So unfortunately, you do have to raise cash. I think in Europe, a lot of countries, well, first of all, you're only allowed to campaign for 6 weeks or something, which is a godsend. My race isn't for over a year. I'm still over a year out. And I've already been doing this for 6 months. And then they limit, I think the government will give you, in some countries, you get a certain amount of money and that's all you can spend or something. Like, that's the way to do it, but that's not how we do it here in America.
Yeah, you're you're in a lot of European countries, you're not allowed to take money from sponsors. You're given a specific budget, and that's the budget that you're allowed to go with. If you exceed that budget, then you're in trouble. And then there's also questions asked, where did that money come from? So that's it's one of those things. But look, it is what it is. But $100 million, you wonder about that money could be spent much better somewhere else, right? In, like, if you look at the state of the infrastructure in the US, if you look at homeless problems, if you look at drug problems, if you look at mental health issues, like, I can name off the top of my head 20 different issues that could be fixed with $1 billion, rather
Or
than TV
building
ads for running
rockets
for
to
Senate,
explore the universe. Exactly.
whatever.
A
Yeah.
100,000%, 100,000%. And I mean, you drive around Houston and you got to replace your tires every few months because the potholes are so bad. You're just the car's rattling apart as you're driving down these bad roads. There's a million ways to spend better money than this. But like, one of the things I worry about, there's this idea from the space shuttle. This lady, Diane Vaughan, wrote a book called The Normalization of Deviance. Back in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up, and NASA had been seeing all these problems on every mission. And a lot of people were saying, hey, there's a problem with the solid rockets, and they ignored it. They normalized deviance, right? There's a problem with the rocket, but we launched and it didn't blow up, so it must be okay. Something that was going wrong, and they said, no, it's okay. And I just realized this today. In fact, I'm doing a speech in an hour, and I'm going to throw my speech out and talk about this idea that what we're doing now in America is we're normalizing deviance when it comes to politics. Like, this Trump administration is just ignoring all laws. They're just completely not following the law. They're not following the Constitution. And now that's become okay. And that's a really bad place to be in. Like, you can't normalize deviance or you end up with the space shuttle blowing up. And the same things happen in political systems. So I think we need to get back to if something is wrong, then call it wrong and don't do it. And if somebody does it, hold them accountable. But that's an interesting concept. There, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of lessons from space travel that can apply to your daily life and even politics.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you did mention the Columbia Challenger accidents and how that maybe relates to some of the stuff that's going on at the Democratic Party and some of the mistakes that they've made, etc. Right? Like, let's dig into that a little bit deeper, right? So the background to those particular accidents was human error, right? There was just things that shouldn't have happened.
Both accidents in Columbia, it was foam that hit the wing and put a hole in the wing, and then the shuttle burned up during reentry. During Challenger, the big white solid rocket, there's a space shuttle right there. There it is right there. That big white rocket on the side was leaking hot gas. And they saw some video on a couple flights, the gas leaked, but it was like out into the air and it didn't matter. But on Challenger, the leak happened to be pointed right at that orange tank, which is the fuel tank. And it was basically a blowtorch on high explosives. After about a minute, 15 seconds, it blew up. And so, like, as NASA, when you see hot gas leaking out of the rocket, you should go, I wonder why it's doing that, instead of saying, well, it didn't kill anybody, so it must not be that bad. That's an important distinction. So when you see a president of the United States ignoring the Constitution and seizing control of American cities with the army and having corruption unlike anything we've ever seen. I just read an article that the Trump family is $5.5 billion richer than they were at the beginning of this year. The White House, I was just in DC for some meetings watching, I peered through the gate. They're trying to block it so you can't see it, but I actually looked in and I could see the East Wing being torn down. It made me sick to my stomach. I've been in the East Wing. It was just really sad to see this happening. And a bunch of American companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to buy favor. America is becoming a pay-to-play corrupt system, which is horrific. I can't stand by and watch that happen. But you can't normalize these things. Like, it's not okay for companies to give huge amounts of money and expect, look, that's how our system works, I know, but we can't normalize it and we need to fight against it. Corruption.
Do you think there's a change on the ground in the mentality of the people in the US when it comes to tolerance of this? Because you say, hey, we can't accept this. Like, we shouldn't, like, as to go back to your point around, for example, the Challenger accident, the fact that NASA would have seen that thing and they just said, oh, it's fine. From the outside looking in, right? This is from a European looking in, and it's very easy for us to say over in Europe, sitting on our high horse, to say, "Oh, it's a mess over there." You know, it's a mess here as well. It's a mess everywhere at the minute. But I feel as though the rhetoric that we're hearing a little bit from people that are on the ground in the States is that the mentality is shifting a little bit. They're not being as accepting of what's going on. Even people on the far right that would have been the top MAGA supporters or whatever are not really getting on board because of a couple of different things. For example, the stuff with the background with the different files that would have been released and whatnot, and promises that would have been made in campaigning late last year, right? That then didn't come to fruition in the end, and it seems that the rhetoric is starting to change a little bit. Have you seen that in the ground as well, or?
Absolutely. So I just got an email 5 minutes before this podcast that talked about how evangelicals were 83% for Trump, and now they're 75. You know, the support amongst the hardcore Christians is dropping off. Texas is very Hispanic. My district is very Hispanic. The support amongst Hispanics is dropping off. So Trump is becoming unpopular in all areas. But you bring up an interesting point, because the Challenger accident was, don't normalize deviance. The Columbia accident was 17 years later. And so after Challenger, NASA learned all those lessons. And the junior engineers that had to read the safety report and sit through all the briefings, and they're like, oh man, we can't do that again. 17 years later, they were the mid and upper level management, right? And then the same thing happened in Columbia. So I do this guest lecture. Well, I teach this case study for companies, you know, for businesses. I also do guest lecturing at Harvard Business School. And the big point I make there, is that it's one thing to learn a lesson, and it's quite another to remember a lesson. And then with Challenger and Columbia, NASA learned a lesson and then they forgot it. So when it comes to politics, you're in Europe right now. Where are you, in Austria or Germany or?
I'm in Austria. I'm in
you know?
Austria. Yeah.
Yeah. So Austria and Germany learned some lessons back in the 1930s and 1940s, right? And have we forgotten those lessons? People are wanting to give Putin the Donbass and Ukraine, and then that'll keep him happy, right? Like, you're literally in ground zero for where we learned that lesson. You can't give dictators the Sudetenland. He's not going to stop there, right? And this is what makes me bang my head against the wall. But like, folks, we've seen this movie before, and we know the ending. So like, let's not have a sequel to the movie with the terrible ending. So that's something that I think you can learn lessons from spaceflight and apply them to our lessons. Because when a space shuttle blows up, and the Columbia was 7 of my friends, like I was there with their families, it was horrific. 7 people died. But when you have when important nations go down a fascist path, a lot more than 7 people are affected. So that's, we should not forget the lessons that we've learned.
Yeah, it seems as though that we are, as unfortunately we're moving backwards quite a bit.
Yeah.
I can
So
see
let's
you can
stop
see
it.
it
We don't have to,
across the
Andy.
board. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Let's stop that. Yeah.
What's your vision of
Um,
that? So if we're talking about stopping it, right?
yeah.
So your vision. So
Yeah.
you've got a credo. You know which way you want to take things.
I
So
do.
what are you promising people? What do you want to do? What changes do you want to make?
So look, in America, we have 2 parties, Republican and Democrat. It is what it is. As they say, you go to war with the army you have. And the army we have is a 2-party system in America. So you're either a Republican, in which case you just try and kiss Donald Trump's ring and do everything that he says to do, or you're a Democrat. And so my vision for the Democratic Party is that we need to get back to the basics. We used to be the party of the working man, right? Like, it was the party of the working class. And we've kind of degenerated into kind of social things, and people look at Democrats, unfortunately, and they think that we're weak and we're weird. And that's not true at all. Look, I'm in Texas. Texas Democrats are awesome. They're common sense people. They're farmers, they're mechanics, they're lawyers, whatever. They're like normal people that want to do good things. So the Democratic Party needs to get back to focusing on middle class issues, economic issues, healthcare, education, those types of things. We need to come up with a plan to fix this brokenness that is being caused by this current administration. And we need to do that by being a big tent. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party has had a lot of litmus tests. Like, unless you're ideologically pure and you agree with every single, social issue and the Green New Deal and all this stuff, if you deviate in any way, or if you've ever had anything imperfect and impure in your life, you're canceled, right? We need to realize that, like, let's be a big tent party of actual real human beings, and not just kind of the coastal liberal, college professor elites. That's not normal Americans. That's not look, Texas is full of normal common sense people. That's who we need to be that party of. But let me say this too, Andy. Trump is really unpopular. Like you mentioned it earlier. He in all areas, his popularity is dropping, even on the economy and immigration. That used to be his strength. And the reason it's dropping is because he's terrible on the economy and immigration. But Democrats in every area are much worse than Trump. So a lot of I talked to the senator and I said, man, our party, we're getting killed. And he's like, don't worry about it. No one ever likes political parties, and Trump's Republicans are bad too. I'm like, no, let's worry about it. Like, if we're Trump's at 40%, we're at 25%. So we need to get better. Here's another thing from spaceflight and also flying F-16s. After your mission, you have a debrief, right? Like, you do something and then you debrief it. In business, if you have a big project, you do the project, and then hopefully, if you're a good business, you'll get together and go, hey, what went well? What went wrong? How do we fix it? And how do we not, how do we get better? The Democratic Party never had that debrief. We just got our butts kicked in 2024. I mean, Donald Trump is president. Republicans have the House and Senate. And they have the Supreme Court because they have the House and Senate and the president. We need to have a debrief. Like, why did Americans vote us out? Why are Americans going with them? And I think it's because we got distracted by certain issues, and we need to focus on getting healthcare to people, getting costs down. Unemployment, I think, is about to be a real problem in America. So anyway, debriefing, important in space flight, and it's important in politics too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the candidates, man. The candidates, like the candidate pool, for
Like
the
me.
Democrats is yeah. That's exactly what
They've
I
gone and
mean.
they've lost their mind.
No, but like if you're again on the outside looking in, right? Like let's use a sports analogy, right? The only way that you can have a winning team is to have depth on the bench. That's how you create a winning team, right? If the first player, if the starter goes down, you have somebody that's able to slot in that's going to be able to take over seamlessly, do the same job if not a better job, or at least appear to do the same job if not a better job. Like the Democrats are far from that, like depth in the bench. I mean, now obviously, okay, it might be changing, but for the presidential race, like, it was a mess. Like we were looking at it from this side of the pond,
Well,
just being like,
yeah, excuse me. I can't imagine what it's like being in Europe looking in at this. Um, I know. Well, the real problem for the presidential race, Joe Biden said he was going to be one and done. He said, like, look, I beat Trump. What he should have done is said, hey guys, I beat Trump. Give me a high five. Okay, you're buying. I'm not going to buy my beer. You're going to buy my beer. Like I'll take my victory lap and let the younger generation come in. Instead, he tried to hang on to power. He was clearly too old. And the Democratic Party told America that no, he's not too old. He's at the top of his game. And you know what? He got some stuff done. He got a lot of legislation done in the first term, in the first year or two. He got us out of COVID. So he did have some accomplishments in his first term, but my God, he was too old. Democrats told America, hey, he's not too old. And America said, you're full of it. And they voted for Donald Trump. We lost an election based on trust to the biggest liar in American history. And so as a party, we need to like slap ourselves in the face, throw some cold water on our face and go, all right, guys, we need to get better. Kamala Harris got parachuted into that. We told America that Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. Democracy, democracy. He's going to tear down our democracy. And then we put a candidate in who didn't even have a primary. Like she didn't get elected by Democratic voters. She just got parachuted in. So I think if Kamala Harris would have gone through the primary and slugged it out, and I think she
yeah,
would be president right now, but she didn't
probably,
because the party is dysfunctional. Yes.
yeah, left it far too late before getting involved, and then it was already like
It was
it was
insane.
so obvious. It was so obvious that it was never going to work out with Biden. I felt sorry for him. Like honestly, that was
I
like the
didn't feel
rhetoric over
sorry
here. It's
for
like,
him. He's an old man, but it was his selfishness and his whole inner circle around him that got us in this mess. We have a Supreme Court, right? It's a job for life. There was a lady named Ruth Bader Ginsburg who's like the hero of Democrats because she was this small, petite Jewish woman and she fought back for liberal causes. The liberals love her. She was old, she had cancer, and she could have retired during the Obama administration and been replaced with a Democratic thing. Instead, she tried to hang on, and unfortunately, she passed away from cancer during the Trump administration. So she got replaced by this super liberal judge. So the point is, here's the thing, Andy. The only way I'm going to die in Congress is if I get run over by a bus. I'm not going to be hanging on when I'm 85 years old trying to get elected again. So we need term limits in America. That's one of my policies. And also age limits. And like as an airline pilot, I'm a pilot. You can't fly United Airlines or Delta Airlines after age 65, but you can run the most important nation, largest economy on earth
it's
when you're
wild.
80. Like
It's wild. It's
it's insane.
wild. It's
It's
wild.
insane.
Like I look at like I look at this like I look at my dad, right? My dad is like what 67, something like that. He's retired a few years now at this point.
Yeah, young man. He's a
Uh,
young man.
and a young man, but he's like I wouldn't want him to be the president of the US. Like he had a very successful business career, etc. I like it would kill him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're constantly on the move from A to B, 24-hour day job. Like look at what it did to Obama during his term. Like look at Obama at the
Oh,
start of his term. 8 years later, he
everybody.
was.
Look at George W. Bush. Yeah. You age in that job. Yeah.
It is a job for a younger person. Like
I'm in my 50s. I think 50s is perfect because you've lived life, you have wisdom and experience. but you're still energetic and you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, once you get
Is
out of your
is
60s, it's tough.
so 100%, because it's your body's just not able for it. Like no matter, regardless of when you're in your 70s or 80s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
crazy. Like you should be just enjoying your
Yeah.
life. Spend the time with your grandkids, man. It's like it's
Go to the beach, go fly fishing, play with the grandkids, or when you're in your 80s, play with your great grandkids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So obviously, look, I'm hearing from you. Aspiration is at some point to have the main seat, right? That would be something that would be interesting to you at some point in the future.
Well, we'll see. Right now I'm running for a House seat in Texas as a Democrat, which is tough. It's a Republican, and they do this thing called gerrymandering, where they, like I said before, they pick the exact neighborhood by neighborhood. The basic principle is and Trump said he wants 5 more House seats, so they're stealing 5 House seats from Texas. So that means millions of Texans won't be able to have the representative they want because of the way they're doing this. So they basically it's going to end up with, I think, 30 Republican seats in Texas is what they hope, and 8 Democratic seats. And Texas is like, it's a little Republican. It's not that Republican. It's certainly not 30-8. This is just undemocratic. So all the Republican seats are 60-40. So it's like really tough to crack that. And the Democratic seats are like 80-20. So they put all the Democrats in a handful of seats, and then they spread all the rest out to where it's really tough. But I think the Democrats are going to win a few of those seats that Republicans are trying to steal. So I think they're not going to get all that they want, and hopefully voters are going to say this is stupid, and there's a lot of blowback. So faith in democracy. We'll see how it works out.
When's the vote?
My primary vote is in 125 days from today when we're recording this. Not that, I'm an astronaut, so I have my launch countdown clock on my laptop. March 3rd is the primary, and that's when the Democrats pick their candidate, and that's when the Republicans pick their candidate. And then the main election is in November. So November 3rd is when you pick the big, the final candidate. So about a year. We're about a year out from that.
All right, man. Well, look, I wish you all the best with it. I hope it goes in your favor. We'll be rooting you on for over this side of the pond. Terry, is there anything that you want to push other than
I hope things go well there too.
Yeah, don't we all, man? Jesus, yeah. So
I
we'll
mean,
see which way things
Austria,
go.
I think Austria has issues. Hungary has obviously gone down we're following in the Hungary model. I hope we make a course correction. Slovakia with Mr. Fico has issues. Now Czechia might have issues. France, of course, is just a disaster, like they always say. Le bordel. I speak French. I went to school in France, so that there's a lot of issues in Europe right now too. So
it's tough going. It's the same everywhere. I see it. I grew up in Ireland. I live in Austria. I've been living in Austria for 17 years. Ireland's also battling against a very nasty, I would say, undercurrent right now as well. It's the same as what we're seeing across the rest of Europe and also in the States, right? It's very weird times right now, man. Very, very weird times. But I think
let's
hopefully we will
bring some common sense.
learn.
Yeah.
Yes, common sense. That's the thing. And I think that's generally what we're missing. I think that's that's been the main problem over the past maybe 20 years, that we've just lost all sense of what common sense is. So hopefully we start to see that coming back now.
That's my goal.
Absolutely. Right. Terry, where can people find you, mate?
Website, I've got it right there on the video, terryvirts.com. It would be amazing. If you're an American citizen, feel free to support me. You can see kind of things that are going on. Follow me on social media. I'm Astro Terry or Astro_Terry. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Blue Sky, all the different social media things.
Perfect. Terry, I'll make sure to add all of those into the description of the episode. It's been great having you on again.
Amazing.
Mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Can't wait to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks, Terry.